Okay, wonderful good morning, all attendees on today's webinar together with Link AT, together here on the magical Mounting Monday. Today we are going to talking about the theme choosing a wheelchair mount for eye gaze devices, one of the very most important themes when it comes to use AAC devices all over the world. Yeah, we're doing the training today, or I do the training today with the team members of Link AT that we'll also introduce in a few seconds. For all of you that haven't joined one of our last meetings, I would like to start with a little introduction about myself. So hi everybody, my name is Robert. I'm an occupational therapist and the sales manager of the company Rehadapt Engineering here in Germany. And I'm responsible for all the sales themes and trainings all over Europe and also Australia. And yeah, today's main goal is to expand your knowledge about mounting AC devices to wheelchairs, especially with an eye gaze access. Feel free to ask every questions that you have between the webinar here. Write it into the chat. We try to give our best to answer the questions directly. And yeah, the main goal for today is to giving you a little bit more an introduction about what are the differences, what are the things that you need to think about when it comes to mount eye gaze devices to wheelchairs, and to answer as much questions as possible. And I think all of you know that it is extremely important to position an eye gaze device on a wheelchair good enough, stable enough, safe enough, because it's for sure with a couple of devices possible to use them on a table, but as soon as you want or your customer wants to go out and live independently, if they want to travel, if they want to go outside, it is important that the communication system is not only positioned on a table or on a couple of books, because yeah, that will also only limit our customers or an AAC user in his independent communication possibilities. So we need to find a good and stable and safe position on a position for the customer at his wheelchair, where he can have a good track status, where he can have a good eye-controlled accessing of his AAC device. And I think this is something that you all know. Every AAC device is a little bit different. There was a wide range of different devices from Tobii, from iRespond, from iTag, from Smartbox, from Human Electronic, from PRC. So every device is a little bit different. Every eye tracking system has a different way of working and different range of movement that the customer can have when he needs to access the device. But also every customer is very different. Some of them have a lot of head movement. Some of them are sitting very static in their chair, having not a lot of movements. Some of them are very active and traveling a lot, going outside or staying only inside. So we need to analyze the situation of the customer. How is the eye tracking system working together smoothly and best enough with the customer? And wheelchair mount needs to guarantee that the communication system stays all the time in the same position where the customer needs it. And as you can see it here on that example pictures, we need to cover a wide distance of about 50-60 centimeters between the face and the screen of the device, and the track status where the camera system recognizes the eyes and also the right distance must be positioned very well. Otherwise, the tracking system will not work good enough for the customer. So in terms of positioning, that will mean if the eye tracker can't see the eyes good enough, it will never work really well. So we need to take care that the eye tracker recognizes the eyes, that the communication system can be accessed well enough for the customer. And I think every eye tracking system from all the big AAC companies has some hint systems, some little windows where you can see how the eye tracking system must be positioned. And our role is to hold it there on that spot best enough. So, and this is something that we can do with a self-tinkered, self-built solution. We need to have for these job something that is very, very stable, something that is very, very flexible and adjustability things, because otherwise when the customer situation could change over the day, we need to make sure that we can adapt and adjust the entire system very, very fast and easy, and also very intuitive, because you know that as therapists, that it is sometimes, or it could be at the beginning times when you're working the first time with some mounting solutions, that it might be a little bit challenging to understand what are these quick shift levers for, what are these bolts for, and the adjustabilities options must be extremely simple for the environment. And also the mounting solution must be very universal, because when the situation for your customer is changing, the wheelchair, for example, is changing, you want to make sure that you can take all the components from one wheelchair and that you have the chance with a couple of adaptations to put it also on another chair. And that goes also into the direction of that the solution should be economic as possible. Otherwise, when it costs a high load of money, nobody will possibly pay for that. And it must also be very, very light, because when we are having an AAC device with a total weight of 3, 4, 5 kilograms that will hold onto a very, very high position on a wheelchair that is maybe 60 centimeters away from the face of your customer, and when also then the entire mounting components are extremely heavy as well, then there will always be a risk that the wheelchair could tip over to one direction when the customer is not sitting anymore in his wheelchair. And also when we are working with kids, with very, very light kids, we also don't want that the wheelchair, the mount, and the communication system fall over to the side when the customer is sitting in. And it should also be possibly nice to look at it, because otherwise it will stigmatize the person even more. So for the people that have joined our last meetings, that slide may look a little bit familiar. This is not how we think mounting of AAC devices, and especially of eye gaze devices, will work well. So we have developed a multi-component system that is available for all different kind of eye gaze systems, for all kind of touch-based devices, small devices, big devices, for all kind of communication tools that will position the AAC systems in the best possible spot where the customer can use them universally in terms of his requirements. So also there, every customer is very, very individual. Some of them want to travel. Some of them are going to work. Some of them going to school. Some of them staying all the time at home. Some of them are very active, and some of them even not. So this is something that is very, very universal, and we have tried to design our mounting component portfolio also very, very universal, that it fits all the needs for every customer. So mounting of AAC devices, and especially eye gaze devices, is something that means we are having someone that is sitting in his wheelchair, and we have a communication system on a spot where it needs to be positioned. And we can position the devices with a couple of lines and with a couple of points to connect these lines together. And this can be visualized very, very easy with our Monty 3D and L3D components and wheelchair mounting solutions. And depending on what kind of communication device your customer is using, is it only someone that is using an Iris Bond Duo Microsoft Surface combination, then we can think about mounting something very short, very, very light with an L3D mount. But when it comes to something that has a little bit more a requirement for a little bit more stability for a very, very light device, then there is also an option with the hybrid 3D mounting solutions that are a little bit more stable and can hold also devices up to 1.8 kilogram. Also, when the device is getting a little bit more heavier, like the grid pads, the XZ1400 with an eye tracker, or the Tobii devices, then the M3D mounting solutions are going into the direction for devices up to 3 kilogram total weight. And when your customer is very active, when the vibration of the mount could have a bad influence in the customer, and the highest stability pays or is the most important factor for your customer, then we are choosing most of the time something that we call HD, heavy duty mounting solution, and that can hold communication systems with a total weight of 6 kilogram. So this is only a little total overview, but we also, when we want to think about mounting an eye gaze system to the wheelchair, we need to pay a lot of attention on the wheelchair. So we need to see what is it for a wheelchair. When we are seeing it is only a pediatric chair with no adjustability options, then we can search for the most stable position to fix the mount on it. But when it is and wheelchair with a tilting functionality, with a standing functionality, we need to find an attaching point where the mount will stay also when the wheelchair is getting adjusted. We also need to find out, is it allowed to mount on this wheelchair? Is the frame construction something very light, like in carbon material, and then it might be not allowed maybe to install mounting components to the chair. Is there a seatbelt attachment for transporting? When we are working with kids with Rett syndrome, cerebral palsy, they need to be transported every day, for example, between their place where they live and the school. It could be when it is in stroller or in walker that they are getting folded together when they want to take the stroller or the walker and want to put it into the backyard of their car. And then when they fold everything together and the mounting components would affect that functional, that folding options, it could be that the customer get in some troubles with using the devices, and also when they get in trouble with adjusting all the components, then they would maybe say, okay, yeah, it's too problematic with using it on the wheelchair. And we need to make that as smooth as possible. We need also to think about, is there any height adjustability, standing functionalities? And I have created a couple of examples that we want to watch later about some possible solutions and how they look like when it is installed on a wheelchair. Especially backrest adjustability, seat tiltability are some features that are extremely important when you think about the frame clamp and the right mounting solution for the eye gaze device. Is there a lap tray? Are the brakes still working? Footrest swingable? So I know this is very theoretical, and I know for all the ones that have watched the presentation last week, this is something that I'm repeating now, but this is extremely important for every customer. So when we want to choose and very standardized mounting solutions for an eye gaze system, we have 3 different options: an L3D for light devices, an H3D for heavier devices, and an Monty 3D or M3D for the devices up to 3 kilogram. And this is, for example, an customer solution that is very popular here in Germany. This is a therapy chair from the company Schuchmann, the Medite Fan, where we needed to find, or where we was requested to find a solution for the customer. And as you can see, the frame construction here and below is very stable. It looks very solid with the round tubes, but you can see in the middle of the chair or under the chair that there is a functionality that allows you to tilt and up, to high adjust the complete solution. So we have chosen here for an Accent 1000 in combination with an eye tracking system, a hybrid mount solution, so that there's a silver tube on the beginning and the 2 black tubes that will hold the eye tracking system in the position like you see it here in terms of that newspaper. Also, there is a combination of a base coupler combined with a solution that will allow to take the mount completely away from the wheelchair only after opening the red quick shift lever and removing the safety pin. Also, this is here another solution on a very, very similar chair. As you can see here, when we are positioning the complete mount under the seat construction, under the seating plate, we have the chance to adjust the angle of the chair in all different possible directions, and the 3 tubes here will always stay on the same position, and that allows the user and good access. It doesn't matter in what kind of direction you're tilting the seating plate or adjusting the complete wheelchair for your customer. This is another example of a power chair that also should be combined with an eye tracking system, with an iRespond Duo and Microsoft Surface solution. So that means this is something that we can use also with a very lightweight mounting solution with a hybrid. And as you can see here, the silver tube is getting connected with the armrest. And for all of you that are thinking about, oh, wow, stop, is it possible to mount on an armrest? Yeah, I would not say all the time, mount all the time to armrests, but if the armrest is stable enough to be connected with a good frame clamp and will not move in all different directions, so why not? If there is not another option on the frame of the wheelchair, so then why not choosing an attachment point there on the armrest? And as you can see here, the silver tube gives you the right distance to get good enough forward without getting in trouble with the wheelchair control joystick. So this is a very, very economic way of mounting an eye gaze system only with 3 tubes in combination of the L3D and the M3D components. Another solution, this is, for example, has been a customer request also for an iRespond Duo, a Microsoft Surface solution on a pediatric tilting chair. I know the picture here is not looking that perfect, but as you can see here, the wheelchair construction, the seat, and the base construction are tiltable, and we've needed to find a solution here for that kind of chair that also follows that tilting functionality. And as you can see here and below, the frame has round tubes. They are easy to attach. Normally, we would say, okay, it would be extremely easy when we are looking on that chair to use an attaching point here or more here and below on that chair. That could be extremely easy. But as soon as we are tilting the chair, nothing will follow in the direction for the customer. So we have decided to choose a semi-open frame clamp in combination with an L3D, so a very, very light mounting solution for this customer chair, and have attached the round frame clamp directly under the seating plate. For all of you that see the left picture here, you can see under the seating plate here, there is also a round tube where we could attach a semi-open, or better, a half-open frame clamp to attach the entire mount for the customer. So this is only how we would mount a simply and light communication device within standard solution. When you're looking on our homepage in the area of wheelchair mounts solutions, you found the area EyeControl mounts. And in the EyeControl mounts area, you also see the hybrid long mount solutions for the light devices. You see the Monty 3D EyeControl that has a total length of 1.30 meters between the wheelchair and the eye gaze systems, only with 3 single tubes. And you see the HD solution, the double tube arm for the base. But when would you choose what kind of solution for what kind of customer? You can say it, or you can choose the system only depending on the total weight of the communication system. But when we see in wheelchair, like here in that example, this is a wheelchair that, in my experience, a lot of people with a heavy brain injury are using, or people with ALS most of the time. They're using also the seat tilting functionality. And when we want to use on a wheelchair like that, and heavy duty arm, we could get in trouble in terms of the wheelchair construction. But for example, on that chair, we can have a very, very good and stable attaching point from under the seat. So under the seating plate, there is a covered tube where we can attach a frame clamp and go with a single tube, very, very easy forward, and with the other tubes in the right direction. If the wheelchair has, for example, like in that example of that Permobil wheelchair, an easy to attach frame construction with an unitrack rail system on the side or under the armrest, we could also install very, very, very easy and double tube HD arm here on the side. In the past, there were some solutions with quick shift levers to remove the double tubes away. Now it is possible also to combine the double tubes arms with a base coupler system to remove the complete mount from the wheelchair from here as well. This is a customer example from the guys of Link AT. So it was a customer case from Amy from the past. So this is how we see a wheelchair when we are getting, for example, a VMS request. So we are seeing a power chair. We're seeing that there are some footrests. We are seeing there is the control unit on the left side from the wheelchair. And we need now to choose the right mounting solution for an Tobii iMobile here for that customer. So a question to all of you. We are knowing here, this could be the frame clamp that we can attach here to the wheelchair when there is a unitrack rail system. A question to all of the attendees, what do you think after hearing today in the morning, or German time, for the wheelchair mounting solution? So what do you think, what could be the right mounting solution for an iMobile here for a power chair? So we have seen today there is an L3D for lights, there is an H3D for mid-class weight, and there is an M3D for more heavier, for more stable solutions. So a question for you, write it into the chat. What do you think? What could be a solution? What could be the mounting apparatus that we would use for that kind of a wheelchair? So it is a very active chair. The seating plate is getting tilted, the backrest could be tilted. So what kind of mounting solution would you use for that kind of a customer? Write it into the chat. I would be interested to know what are your first thoughts when you would choose a mounting solution for that kind of chair. We have here a Monty 3D Unitrack frame clamp that can be very, very easy attached to the wheelchair. Write it into the chat if you're having an answer. If you have no answer for that question, I tell you what I would choose. So for a customer here in a power chair, we are having possibly someone that is very, very, very active, that could go outside. So we need to make sure that the device is positioned very, very stable. So we would use for that kind of customer a Monty 3D EyeControl that would look like this way. So we would attach the frame clamp to the right side of the wheelchair, would have that one tube that allows us to bring the swivel unit into the right angle, that will not distract the footrests, that would have the vertical tube, would bring the communication system into the right height for the device, and then the horizontal tube for the right angle to adjust then the screen on a good high position in front of the customer face. So this is a user example of the real life from one of the customers as well in Australia. So Philippa Cole, Monty 3D EyeControl for that previous chair. Yeah, why not? Depending on how active the customer is. If it is a problem with a lot of vibrations, then why not using an EyeControl HD if the customer is going outside? If the client went off-road, one unstable surface, would you go the HD version? So why not? Yeah, the HD is so much more stable than the normal EyeControl. On a weight load perspective, you would not need it for a heavier eye gaze device like the i13 or i12 and i15s. It was previously always recommended to choose something more stable like a double tube arm. So this is, for example, in customer case from one little lady in Australia with Rett syndrome. So previously it was a pediatric chair, and an eye gaze system should be attached to the wheelchair. In the beginning time, when they want to install all the components here, they have chosen a frame attaching point on the left side, with a round frame clamp on the frame. And the problem here has been, when they have started to using it, that the tubes came in touch with the wheels of the wheelchair. That had had a negative effect in using the mounting solution in combination of the wheelchair. So the problems have been now here, that the device position was too low for the customer. The tubes were in touch with the frame, with the wheels of the wheelchair, and the device position didn't work very well for this customer. So what we have at first recommended was, okay, so why not turning around the tubes, adjusting the position a little bit, just some small hints how you could solve that issue here with the customer. But life is never that easy as you think, as it could be. And so we have met this little lady in Australia at the EyeControl conference, and this is something that you will see with everybody that is working with mounting solutions. So every time when you're seeing a wheelchair, you go to the ground. You're checking and looking for all different positions that could be possible to attach a frame clamp on it. And as you can see here, now the silt is tilted. So in the beginning stage of when they have planned to install the double tube mount to the wheelchair, they have chosen a spot in below of the wheelchair on the frame that doesn't follow the tilting functionalities. And it means as soon as you're tilting the chair backwards, the device will stay on a position and the kids will move away from the eye gaze system. So we needed to find a spot on the frame or on the seating plate where we can attach also the HD arm. But on the other hand, we also needed to find a way where the double tube arms needs to be where the tubes are over each other and not next to each other. Otherwise, they will not reduce the vibrating effect from the mount. So this is what we have suggested. We would use a frame clamp that could be attached under the seating plate directly, that can be combined with a 90 degrees adapter that moves the double tube construction to the side and hold both tubes over each other. So this is a construction will also follow the direction when the wheelchair is getting tilted, and the kid can then access the device good and stable enough. But as you can see here on the left picture, it is connected with a 90 degrees angle and the double tube base. When it comes to now transferring the kid out of the wheelchair, we would need here in that case also a base coupler to be able to remove the double tubes easy and fast from the wheelchair. So this is just an example. Also here, another user example. This is also again a therapy chair and high adjustable therapy chair with no adjustability or attaching options directly on the seat. There is no rail system or anything. In below, you see also here some very stable, round and solid frame elements here on the chair. But also, if we are attaching the eye gaze system to that frame component there and below, it will always stay in one position and never follow the movements of the wheelchair, which is important for your customer. So that means we need to find also a high adjustable and tiltable option here on that chair. And this is also something where we need to mount all the components to the armrests. We have made for some different kind of wheelchairs, like for example this wheelchair from the company Schuchmann, a special individual frame clamp, but it is also possible to attach the entire solution with two plates with the M3D RKLE 3070 here to the armrest. And this is how it will look like, how the components will look like when we would attach them to the wheelchair. This is another very interesting user scenario. We have been requested from a customer. So this is someone that is using a very heavy i15 in combination with that wheelchair. And as you can see here, the tube length is extremely long. So the first tube is on a very, very low position. The angle for the first tube goes outside. That could have a negative influence in getting through doors, because there is always a constant risk that the first tube and the mount will get in touch with the door frame, for example. And we have been requested if it is possible to adjust all the components in a more economic way. So what could be another frame clamp that can be attached here to the wheelchair, where we could choose a better angle for all the components. And our idea has been, when we are looking on the pictures, we are searching for attaching points for the solution. So we have chosen here option number 1, a semi-open frame clamp on the frame construction of this chair with a double tube arm that would give us a chance to add all the components in a way like you can see it here. So now we are having a better angle on the beginning of the wheelchair, so it could be better adjusted. Option number 2 could be that we are using the 2 mounting plates of the RKLE 3070 and putting it together from both sides of the wheelchair, but with the same ending result. So it looks completely as the same solution, like with the semi-open frame clamp, but also here with the double tube. But with this solution, for example, you would not get in trouble when you need to drive through doors. And this is something very important. Every mounting solution should never be so much wider than the entire wheelchair. We need to make sure when we are installing all the components that we are staying into the wide of the wheelchair. As soon as it gets wider, it could make some problems for your customer when they want to drive outside independently. So choosing a wheelchair mount for communication devices with a short mount is also something that can be possible and can be done with an L3D tube or with an M3D tube solution. It's very, very independent and up to the customer situation. But when we are having someone that is sitting into a stroller, like a kid with, for example, cerebral palsy or Rett syndrome, we could also sometimes use only 2 tubes. This is a customer situation or a customer example from someone with ALS that has requested for a very, very easy solution for an iMobile in combination with his power chair. So he wanted to have something, a frame clamp that is attached to the side of his wheelchair, and only with 2 tubes. So one tube comes from the ground upstairs, and the other tube goes in a horizontal position to position the eye gaze system there good enough. So this would be something that could be possible as long as we have enough distance between the face of the customer and the eye gaze system. So it is also sometimes possible to make the solution very short, only with 2 tubes. So it's not always necessary to take 3 tubes to position eye gaze devices. But as soon as there is a lap tray attached to the wheelchair, sometimes the 2 tubes or the 3 tubes came to a very early limit. So that's the reason why we also have these S tubes or curved tube solutions that can also be attached on the power chair, also on that side where, for example, the control unit of the power chair is. As you can see here on that example, we are using an attaching point and a frame clamp point on the side of the wheelchair, and now we are using these S-shaped tube to come from the seating plate upstairs, going forward and onto a good high position. And also there we are having again the horizontal tube for all the adjustabilities for the screen. So also with the horizontal tube, we can get a little bit more distance far away or closer to the customer. The previous user, where I have showed you the two-tube solution, also wanted to see, is it possible maybe with another solution? So also for that customer, we have suggested not only a two-tube solution, but also a curved mounting solution, like here in that example. And as you can see here on the right picture, the curved tubes are not only giving you the distance benefits in moving it forward, they will also or can give you the benefits in moving the entire solution a little bit more over the legs of the customer. And that can also mean that you will need then later a shorter horizontal tube as last attaching point. This is user number 5, another customer example. So this is also a pediatric chair. You can see there are some pillows on the side. There is an construction here on the headrest that will hold the head good enough. There are some footrests, and also here it is requested to mount an eye gaze system. Also here we need to find a solution. So when we are looking a little bit more closer to that wheelchair, we will see that there is a tilting functionality, and there are some tubes under the seating plate where we could attach also again a frame clamp and combine it with a mounting solution. So here you can see a round tube. It is covered from the seating plate. That would mean we would need here a semi-open frame clamp that could be attached here to that kind of a chair. That also follows then the tilting functionality of the wheelchair. And we have combined that in combination with also a curved mounting solution, and that would look on the wheelchair like here on the right example. And as you can see here, a curved is not a solution for every chair, but it could also be a very nice solution for an eye gaze system, only to use 2 tubes, one S-shaped tube and one horizontal tube, besides the 3 tube options. So how can you learn how to assemble everything? So for all of you that following our YouTube channel, for all of you that following our Facebook page, you may have seen that we have started last week ago a new video platform that is called Mounting Made Easy, where we will introduce you about all the assembly options, about all the frame clamp options. And as you have followed today the presentation, you have seen for every wheelchair mount, for every eye gaze mount, we are needing a very individual kind of a frame clamp, and we also need to build up all the components good enough, economically stable enough together. So this is something that you will learn when you are following our Mounting Made Easy videos on YouTube. And also there you have the chance to answer into the comments all the questions, where you can also say, okay, I want to see this and this and this video, and then we are producing the next videos in direction of your needs. So I think it's important not to talk about too much and to be scared enough. There is nothing magical about mounting to wheelchairs. You only need to understand your customer, get into his perspective. So what is important for them? What are his daily challenges that the customer is into it? And if you understand your customer and your customer situation, you know now there are light mounts, there are short mounts, there are curved mounts, there are HD mounts. Understand the wheelchair, look how the wheelchair is working, look for the right frame clamp construction, and check up what are distracting elements on the wheelchair that can have a negative influence in using it. And you all know, when we are allowing our customers to use their AAC devices, comfortable, accessible, they are using and enjoying the greatest quality of life and freedom of expression. And I think this is something that we all know how important it is to be able to communicate. And I found a very, very nice example of a guy that is called Larko, who lives in, I think in the UK. very close to, I think it has been Leeds, yeah. And he wrote something I have seen last year on his YouTube page, a couple of very nice videos. So this is an guy that is a musician. So he has I only see it. He has cerebral palsy, and he's writing all the texts, all the hip hop content, and together with some friends, they are doing music together. So he's the one that is write everything, and they are doing and making the music together. And he wrote something that I found very inspiring. So he wrote, I don't want it to be the disabled to be the center of all of this, as I don't think myself as disabled. I'm just me. I use music to tell my story. And if it inspires others, this is a bonus. And I think, isn't that important enough to be able to communicate, to give people with speech disabilities the chance to tell whatever they want to. Yeah, so the right mounting solution, it doesn't matter if it is for an eye gaze system or for a touch-based device, for a scanning device, for every kind of AAC device, can help the customers to be independent, to be able to communicate, and to follow their vision, to be rapper, to go to university, to go to work, to only communicate with their closest environment, or to make music. So if you're going to YouTube and check out for Larko, he is a great musician and a great inspiring guy. And yeah, also a user of an eye gaze system in combination with one of our wheelchair mounting solutions. Yeah, for all of you that now knowing what is the right solution for an eye gaze system that is perfect, for all of you that want to have a little bit more of assistance in choosing the right mounting solution, I will only invite you to use our virtual mounting solution service. This is something that you can very easy from everywhere in the world. We have designed a new app that is called VMS to go, where you can take a couple of pictures of your customer and his chair. You can just hold the communication system in a spot where he can access is good enough. Then you only need to send us or to the guys of Link AT or whoever is your partner in the world the pictures of your customer in his wheelchair, and then our team is designing a virtual mounting solution like you have seen it today a couple of times here in my presentation, and we can give you with an experience of about 10,000 cases from the last years, I think hopefully a good suggestion what could be a good solution for your customer for his eye gaze devices. We have tried to make the process as easy as possible for you. So if you are feeling scared in choosing the right tools, please use the VMS service. Download the app, go on our homepage, download the PDF worksheet to do all the data collection. Or if you have any questions, write it to your partner, get in touch, get in communication, and you will get from us everything what you need for your customer. You get the quotation about all the components, you get your pictures with a suggested solution that we would choose for the customer, a clear recommendation about the frame clamp, and also manuals, product documentation stuff when you want to set up everything. And it is free of charge, so you don't pay for anything there, and you are going more on the safer side in choosing the right mount for your customer. So, communication around the world, we want to make that possible for your customers, and we only can do that together with you guys, with our partners. So I hope you enjoyed that episode today, or that little webinar about choosing eye gaze mounting solutions for your customer. So if you have any questions, any individual questions for your customers that you would like to discuss, write it into the chat, activate your microphone, let me know what you're thinking about mounting AAC devices. I hope it helped you to learn a little bit more about our way of looking on customers, this is something how we are training our customers, our partners. And yeah, I hope it was informative for you as well to be now, yeah, well prepared if you meet customers. So any other questions, let me know, write them into the chat. Anything that I have forgotten to tell you, then also let me know that. Any experience that you would like to change. So Simona has a question, quick question. You mentioned that the double mounts of the mount should be mounted horizontally to take more of the vibration. Is there a certain angle that you would recommend from the vertical, or just make sure you don't mount the double tubes vertically? Simona, this is a very, very good question. Give me a second. So as you can see here, behind me, there is a wheelchair, for example. I think your question is about how vertically can you mount the double tubes here on the beginning. I hope I understand your question correct. So with the first tubes that you are installing here to a wheelchair, you try to get the greatest distance between your customer, because most of the time you need 60 centimeters of space between the face and the screen. And that's the reason why most of the time we are mounting that component here on a more horizontal way to get the widest distance away from the customer. And in combination with a base coupler component, we can remove also the double tubes later. What we are seeing a lot is that customer mounting the double tubes next to each other, like for example in this way, and this is completely useless. So we are recommending always to mounting it in that way. If the angle must be positioned a little bit more upwards, that is no problem. But when you installing it in that way, for example, you don't have any distance to go forward, and this is something that you need in combination with an eye gaze systems. So it is possible to mount it vertically, but for an eye gaze system, most of the time useless, because then you're getting not the right distance between the face and your customer. So Link IT is telling, then with your vertical tube, should that be vertically or can angle out to the vertical tube? Is mostly recommended to be mounted also here vertically as possible. So if we are moving it forward into an angle that goes a little bit more forward, that will always mean most of the time when we are opening that swivel joint here on the base of the first tube, that there is a little bit more and higher risk that when the tube is moved forward, that it will rotate very, very fast to the outside. And there could be a little bit of a risk for the environment that the communication system drops to the side, if that makes sense. I often see people putting the vertical tube on a far angle forward. Yeah, so there are some recommendations. Most of the time it is recommended to put the vertical tube in a 90 degrees angle if possible. If we need to moving it a little bit more forward, that's not a problem, but I never would recommend something like mounting the vertical tube that much in a very, very forward moved angle, because this is just too risky for the customer. So Karen, looking forward to understanding the differences in cost between the different mounting systems. For example, a floor mount can seem expensive, but can go between locations versus putting a mount on the bed and wheelchair as different locations. What's the best solutions for different locations? So this is something that is very, very, very individual. So we are seeing a lot of people that saying, okay, it is interest, or I choose only an rolling floor mount, for example, that we can use in all different environments. But the problem is, as soon as you have an active wheelchair user that is going outside, then that means the assistants need to take the wheelchair and drive the wheelchair, and then also the floor stand as well. That could be for the customer very uncomfortable. But for different locations versus putting it on the bed, on the wheelchair, for different locations, mobile or fixed. Yeah, it depends on the person. But I mean, I always asking myself, if you can choose, for example, between a wheelchair mount and a rolling floor mount. We are getting requested a lot of times. So what would you choose, wheelchair mount or floor stand? Yeah, should we choose the red pill or the blue pill? So the answer is very, very easy to explain. When we can choose both things for both situations, then we should, when there is a chance, should be choosing both things, because this is something you can't use and wheelchair mount on the bed. So imagine the situation: your customer is sitting here in his wheelchair and is moving to the bed, and he has only an wheelchair mount. You will never adjust, open all the tubes, putting it into the right angle where the bed is. And when it is also a high adjustable bed, you can never use the mount from the wheelchair then also in the bed. So yeah, if there is a chance to combine the solution, and most of our customers used to have both solutions, a floor stand, some of them also having a table stand, and a wheelchair mount. Because I mean, the question is very easy to explain. Where do you use your voice? I use my voice all the time, otherwise I couldn't do the presentations. And that's also the same for your customers. When they want to communicate, they need to have an access to their voice, and this is what the communication system stands for. So I think, yeah, it's up to the customer. Some of them using very, very early in the beginning, only in rolling floor mount or in table mount, and then going over to another solution. So this is also something that can grow over the time. So yeah, very individual. But it's a very, very good and important question, Karen. Thank you for that. This is a more general eye gaze question. I have 80-year-old cerebral palsy client using a laptop for school, wanting to trial eye gaze as mouse option, as sick of using scan switch for computer use. How would the laptop needed to be set up? Like in same position on desk every single time, as I think on the wheelchair tray would be too close. So that means he's using an eye gaze system and also wants to use a laptop on a wheelchair or on a table. Is that correct, Catherine? Okay, good. So when your customer is sitting in a wheelchair and used to have an existing mounting solution for his eye gaze device, we are providing a solution that is called a lap tray directly for laptops. So it's only an adapter plate that you can add to the mount of your customer, and where you put the laptop also on it. So this is only another kind of an adapter plate that you can also combine with a table mount or a rolling floor mount. So it's only a little bit huger silver plate where you add the laptop on it, and then you can switch between his eye gaze device and the laptop. You only need to remove then the adapter plate and put the laptop on it. Okay, thanks. So you can use eye gaze with a laptop. Yes, definitely. You can use eye gaze with laptops. As soon as the tracker is connected with a laptop, I mean, you only need to have an adapter plate under the laptop. I mean, we have some solutions that I can send you also a link about the laptop plates that you can that you find on our homepage. So when you're going onto rehadapt.com, when you're going to components, then you will find there an area in the plate in the area of adapters for smartphones and tablets, and there you find in below. I can share my screen with you again. There you will find all different kind of other laptop adapter plates. As you can see here, there is the GA lap tray. There you can put in the laptop very, very easy. Then there is also here the GA netbook 10 to 14, which is one solution. So I put you the link here into the message window. So this is the adapter plate. GA laptop is, for example, that solution here. This could be one thing. And the other thing could then be, for example, here the GA netbook. And this could be also combined with all different kind of other tracking system. So as you can see here on that little example with the adapter plate, like here, that one here, you can combine it with a laptop. And when the eye tracker is then connected with the screen, you can also use the laptop then also in combination with a table mount, floor mount, or Rehadapt mounting solution. And would need HD mount for a laptop? It depends on the laptop. I mean, if you are going outside and you're using a laptop while you're driving a wheelchair outside, I would think this would be maybe not the right solution, because the screen of the laptop will also move with the wheelchair as well. No, that was the wrong question. Only for computer use. Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, only for computer use. So I think the next webinar that we will hold will be on the next Monday, the 18th. On the next Monday, we are talking about introducing to mount switches, and very interesting theme. How can we position that little wonderful helping aids also to wheelchairs, to headrests, onto a good spot? This would be something that would be a little bit more practically as well. Yeah, so next week, all about mounting switches. It doesn't matter what it is. If you have any questions for next week, please feel free to write me an email about your individual switch mount questions. Then I can put it into next week's themes and use it there as well. All right, so if there are no other questions, I'd like to say thank you very much for that wonderful start into the new week of in the week of May here. I really appreciated all of you attending today's webinar, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did it. And I'd like to wish all of you a wonderful new week, and see you next week on our next Mounting Monday webinar session.